Good morning. Hello, everybody. I'm drinking some tea today. Can you see that? Wow. You can see that. Wow. Got some oolong tea this morning. Learned something new recently. Yesterday. Water begins to steam at 71 degrees Celsius. How cool is that? I don't know if that's contingent on the ambient temperature or not, but let's just say in general, 71 degrees. That's nice to know. That was very nice pour. Very smooth, very shapely. No sediment. I've got ball rolled oolong. Very likely to have no sediment for the duration, which is very nice. This is a tea called the Buddha's Hand from Floating Leaves Tea. It smells pretty salty, buttery, a little bit like apple. Apple, salt, and butter. Yum. I recently got some books. I began reading these books that I bought. I got some books. I got a book called Neurogastronomy. There you go. You can read that. It's a book about the brain and gastronomy. Neurogastronomy. How the brain creates flavor. It's the idea, at least. It's all about the senses, specifically the senses of taste and smell, a little bit of touch, a little bit of hearing, or a little bit of sight, but mostly taste and smell. And a lot of the cross-modal interactions that happen with all the other senses. So I've been very interested in that. And I guess I see taste and smell, but really it's mostly about smell. It's not really about taste is not very much. Taste is a very limited aspect of the flavor experience, but the richness mostly comes from smell. So it's mostly about smell. And secondarily, I also got a book called Neuroinology, which is about how the brain creates wine, at least the taste of wine. I'm sure enology means wine, the study of wine, I think. This one I have not looked at yet. But I want to. The gastronomy book came out first, so I believe the same author. I believe it's a need to prerequisite. I believe. I don't actually know, but I believe. Here are the table of contents. We've got a preface, we've got an introduction, we've got part 1, the fluid dynamics of wine tasting. And then within part 1, there are different chapters. Chapter 1 in part 1, sip and saliva. The tongue moving the wine. 3. Respiration and wine aromas. 4. The pathway for retronasal airflow. 5. Swallow aroma burst and finish. What is an aroma burst? I don't know. Finish is aftertaste. I usually just say aftertaste. Tongue movement. I don't usually move my tongue a lot. Sometimes I do, but I don't do it a lot when I'm drinking tea. Respiration and wine aromas. So I'm guessing that we're distinguishing the difference between breathing in and breathing out. I think respiration would just be breathing in, or maybe it's the whole cycle. I don't know. But then the next chapter is retronasal airflow. So that would be the breathing out pathway, where most of the flavor experience is had, according to the prerequisite book I'm reading about. about gastronomy. Apparently, the tastes, the the sense of smell for humans is very strong, but specifically for retronasal, tasting what's in your mouth already. I guess I should explain what retronasal is if that's not well known. So you can smell through your nostrils. That would be orthonasal. But then your nostrils go into your mouth, into your throat, you know? I guess into your throat makes more sense. It goes to your throat. But you can have things in your mouth and then you can smell it through your throat into your nose. So that's retronasal. And that's very refined in people. Part 2, how the sensory systems create the taste of wine. Sight, creating the color of wine. Oh wow, we're going to learn about how to see things. That's cool. Orthonasal smell. Here we go. Wine molecules meet the smell receptors. Orthonasal smell, creating a wine aroma image. Orthonasal smell, the odor image to aroma perception. We're making some distinction between odor and aroma. That's interesting. Odor image, aroma perception. Chapter 10 is touch and the mouthfeel of wine. 11 is taste modalities and wine tasting. Taste modalities? There are different ways to taste things. When we use the word taste to apply to wine, we think we know what we're talking about, the experience of the wine in our mouths. But as we explained in the start of the book, the experience is partly an illusion. It should be no surprise, therefore, that the word itself can be misleading. For some guidance on this terminological thicket, let's start by consulting the experts on the word of the from the Oxford dictionaries. Okay, I'm just going to give us the Oxford dictionary. Oh, this just did. Okay, let's just talking about the 5 modalities, meaning the 5 tastes: sweet, sour, bitter, salty, savory. It's called umami in this book. Hello, welcome. Just looking at a book. Be good to your taste buds. One of the remarkable properties of taste buds is that they turn over, meaning they die and they become replaced. Dying cells activate a small population of stem cells within the taste buds that generate the new taste bud on a schedule about once per month. Wow. Huh. We presume that this turnover reflects the fact that the taste cells are exposed to the external world and that there are constant effects of saliva and actions and toxins and agents that we put in our mouths stresses the taste buds so that they have to be replaced every month. That's a bit strange. Huh. Okay. So we learned about the taste modalities in wine, or I guess just the taste modalities in general, the 5 tastes. Creating taste perception. Retronasal smell, the hidden force in wine tasting. Retronasal smell, what is so special? Retronasal smell, creating the multi-sensory wine flavor. And part 3 of this book is how the central brain systems create the pleasure of the taste of wine. Wine tasting, gender, and aging. I don't know what that's about. Wine tasting, gender, and aging. Is it about the gender and age of the person who is drinking the wine? A paradox. Wine tasting is one of the most rewarding food experiences we humans have, and we have seen that much of this is due to both orthonasal and retronasal smell. Yet at the same time, we believe our sense of smell is quite inferior to most animals, ascribing this to a decline during evolution. when vision became more prominent. Fortunately, evidence increasingly shows that the human sense of smell is much stronger than believed. In 2004, I expressed this notion in The Human Sense of Smell, Are We Better Than We Think? The answer was yes. The perception of wine flavor can be, in fact, used to confirm this claim, drawing as it does on the greater cognitive and limbic neural resources of the human brain to create this most complex of flavor experiences. From this new perspective, it is useful to consider how prevalent the ability to experience this high level of flavor perception is in human population. Richard L. Dolte of the University of Pennsylvania has studied human smell abilities through many years. He introduced and has widely popularized the University of Pennsylvania's smell identification test. What is that? This is an effective approach to analyzing smell abilities in both animals and normal humans and a variety of disordered humans. A question many people may ask is whether the sense of smell is better in women than in men, and whether it declines in age. Well, here we consider those questions with regard to the abilities to detect and discriminate and remember. Okay, so it's about what you'd expect. And the results are about what you'd expect. Somewhere around the age of 50 something, the sensitivity of smell goes down, continuing to go down until about 90 something. And generally speaking, at least until 30 seems to be about the exact point where the sensitivity for men and women are equal, but otherwise it is higher for women consistently. And with age, men have a much lower sensitivity to memory for flavor or for smells. Okay. Then the next chapter after wine tasting, gender, and aging is memory and wine tasting, and then the language of wine tasting, and then the pleasure, the final judge of wine tasting, and then the practical applications of neuroanalogy to the pleasure of wine tasting. Oh, see, that's what I need. Practical application to neuroanalogy. If pleasure is the main criterion for wine tasters, how do wine makers produce wines to satisfy this criterion? The focus we have described on the brain in the beginning to provide intriguing answers. We now know that the flavor of wine is created in a consumer's brain. As we noted earlier, wine preferences are due to many factors, including price, attractiveness of the label, previous experience, word of mouth, bottle size, and shape. Winemakers, for their part, try to produce wines attractive to the consumer taste based on decisions about many factors, including the density of vines per area, harvest time, filtering, micro oxygenation, and fermentation temperature. Research is ongoing in the industry on how to base these decisions on more objective criteria. The evidence reviewed in this book suggests that neuroanalogy can contribute to this effort. We finish by presenting several research studies that address the influence of three important factors in consumer wine choices: alcohol content, price, and expertise. Okay, I guess alcohol content is not really relevant to me. Price and pleasantness. The experienced pleasure, which is called EP in this book, is the good feeling we get when we do something. Economists use the term to characterize the reward we get from consuming a product, such as food or wine. This experienced pleasure depends on intrinsic factors, for example, the ingredients of a wine, the state of the consumer, thirsty, tired, or happy, and the extrinsic factors such as the promises of enjoyment, peer pressure, attractive packaging, and brand loyalty. Advertisers take advantage of this because they know that there are many ways to use extrinsic factors to affect perceived pleasure. One of the most important extrinsic factors from an economic point of view is price. Good question for neuroanalogy is, what is the neuromechanisms through which price might guide preference for wines? Wow, there have been some studies on this. At the end of the book, there's an appendix for how to taste wines. You note the color first, then you got some notes on the bouquet, which I believe is the scent. Then you note the taste and the longueur, which I'm imagining is the finish or the aftertaste, and then a summary. That's a pretty simple way of tasting wine or noting wine. I was a little focused on the reading and not so focused on the tea. Do you find it interesting that sharp cutoff at about 50 something for the sense of smell and the memory of smell, and also that the women are much more sensitive to smell from these scientific studies, at least. Though it didn't show the range. You know, sometimes the range is important to show. It's that kind of that tricky thing of sometimes men have are further into the extremes of a lot of things, whereas women are kind of more narrow, not into the extremes, but shifted to the positive. I wonder if it's a case of that. Well, the taste of this tea is very nice. It's got a lot of apple, and it's got this kind of pinching astringency. It's very localized on the tongue, right where it's touching the tongue. It's not like in the back of the throat only, it's all around. And it's got this little pinchingness to it. It kind of feels like sparkling apple cider. It's got a long aftertaste. It's like cooked down apple. A little bit of cinnamon on it. The taste is continuingly to develop. I feel like I said that wrong, but continuing to develop. Is that what I said? The taste is continuing to develop. It was at some sort of applesauce, cooked down apple with spice in it. But now it's like candy, still apple, like Jolly Rancher, which is quite a different type of apple. The liquid feels very smooth, round. I feel like I'm having some issues swallowing personally. Can't tell if it's the tea or my throat, but I think it's my throat. The aroma of the wet leaves. It's not particularly appetizing. It still has a butteriness to it, but it's also like wet pencil, which I don't think I've ever smelled a wet pencil before, but it smells like wet pencil. I'm personally feeling very pleasant while drinking this tea. My lips are tingling. Again with these lovely pours. This is great. I really like ball roll oolongs just because of that. How easy it is to pour. This pour is so smooth. There's no sediment. Yeah, that's nice. I have the urge to say there's a phrase, there's a meme, there's a phrase. There's a phrase. As I'm expressing my joy with pouring this tea, I'm thinking for some reason, for some odd reason, I don't know what this reason is, but I'm thinking of a phrase from popular YouTuber Logan Paul, who has recently said, "I like my cheese drippy, bruh." Don't know, don't know why I'm thinking of that now, but it feels appropriate. The pour is just nice, and I like my cheese drippy. I'm feeling quite floaty. In addition to these two books, I got a third. It's called The Perfect Meal. Different author, Charles Spence here. Multisensory Science of Food and Dining. This is again more specifically about the cross-modal effects. Gonna look at the table of contents. Haven't looked at this before. Introducing the perfect meal. We've got a foreword, we've got a preface. Introduction, brief history of culinary movements. We've got nouvelle cuisine. I believe it means new. Is that French or Italian? The rise of molecular gastronomy. Molecular gastronomy or modernist cuisine. feel like I have a speech impediment when I'm saying molecular. The rise of the celebrity chef. This is the way that it's organized is very nice, but hard for me to say. There's like chapters, and there are sub chapters, and then there are sub chapters. Anyway, chapter 1.3 is the search for novelty and surprise, and then 1.3.1 is the taste of expectations. I often talk about the before taste of certain teas. The taste of expectations. The taste, and then chapter 1.3.2, food as theater, the multisensory experience economy meets cuisine. And 1.4, the brain on flavor. This is your mind. This is your brain. This is your brain on flavor. 1.4.1, neurogastronomy. And then 1.4.2, do neurogastronomists make great tasting food? Ooh, let's see, 14. Is there a battle between the neurogastronomist and the molecular gastronomist? And I don't know what movement this guy's in. Do neurogastronomists make great tasting food? Given the importance of the brain and multi-sensory flavor perception, one question that would likely spring to mind here is whether or not you are likely to have a perfect meal while sitting in a restaurant serviced by a chef practicing neurogastronomy. This is no longer a purely hypothetical question. For while he may not have come up with the term, the credit for combining culinary science with brain science should go to Miguel Sanchez Romera, a friend of Ferran Adria. You can tell I don't have much of a Spanish accent. I believe it's Spanish. For a while, Sanchez Romera combined two careers as a neurologist by day and the other as a practicing chef by night. Somehow he even found time to write the intriguing book La Cocina de los Sentidos, in which he combines his two passions. He eventually closed his Spanish restaurant situated in Barcelona, um, Les Gardes de Saint Andrew de Lavaniers, then moved to New York City's Chelsea district to open another one named Romera. Miraculously, it looks like the restaurant has managed to survive the excoriating review it received from Frank Baruni in the New York Times. Okay, an excoriating review of a restaurant. Its chef, Miguel Sanchez Romera, is a doctor who worked for years as a neurologist. He has coined the whole new genre of his cooking, which favors squishy textures, kaleidoscopic mosaics of vegetable powders, and a wedding's worth of edible flowers. He calls it neurogastronomy, which embodies a holistic approach of food by means of a thoughtful study of organoleptic properties of each ingredient, or so says the restaurant's website. Organoleptic means perceived by a sense organ. I looked it up. This is excoriating. I mean, I guess it's a bit mocking, but it doesn't say anything really bad. Okay, wow. Of course, it's unlikely that the neurogastronomy movement will lose momentum simply because of its activities of any one of its practitioners or because of negative review, no matter how bad it might be. We would, however, argue that this example helps to illustrate the more fundamental point about neurogastronomy. Understanding the brain on flavor provides insights about only a small part of what makes a wonderful meal truly great. It should always be remembered sticking sticking people into a noisy, claustrophobic coffin that is the contemporary functional magnetic resonance imaging, fMRI scanner, is the most unnatural activity. Well, I'd like to get a yes or no The question is, do neurogastronomists make great tasting food? It feels like a very simple. We got like a subchapter here. I read most of it, but I'm not gonna read the rest of it. Anyway, the one excoriating review was a person who said organoleptic and then said that he looked it up. I mean, I agree. These fancy words. These fancy words, man. Just speak in plain English or Spanish. Because the guy's Spanish, you know? Okay. Food and the perception of everything else. Gastrophysics, the new science of the table. This guy's a gastrophysicist. I got another book from him coming in the mail for some reason. It's taking a long time from Amazon to ship. Gastrophysics. So we got the molecular gastronomist, we got the neurogastronomist, and we've got the gastrophysicist all fighting. Presumably. It's not very clear. Food perception is fundamentally multisensory. Is it modernist cuisine only for the lucky few? It is. Amuse bouche. Don't remember what that means. Like extras or something? Amuse bouche. It's a culinary term. Let the show commence on the start of the perfect meal. Mood food. On the social aspects of dining, waiting staff, the company, the design of the menu. Oh. The design of the menu makes a difference. This dessert is literally calling me. Images on the menu. Is it better to have images or not? On a diet, does nutritional information help? Pricing and behavior, the format of the menu. Oh God, I love this. The format of the menu. Tastes great, but what do we call it? The art and science of food description. Snail porridge. That does not sound good. Snail porridge? I'd love to try it. I think I might be allergic, but I'd be into trying it. It does not sound appetizing. Snail porridge. Can labeling enhance the taste and flavor of a food? The neuroscience of naming foods. Naming names. Jeez, okay. Well, got a whole long chapter about plating, color of plates, size of plates, shapes of plates, the haptic aspects of plates. So if the plate is smooth or rough or heavy, I guess. Plates that are not plates, the smell and sound of plateware, camouflage, improvised plateware, and purpose-made plateware. Are you a super taster? Anyway, it's a book that it seems like I'm interested in this book. It seems like it to me. I think I'm interested in this book. I've been reading so much I wasn't paying attention to the time. I wonder if there's a chapter on rushing or whatever the opposite of rushing is. Having a short amount of time to eat and a long amount of time to eat and how that tastes. I did read something about happiness, right? Or stress. Atmosphere, perfect meal in the dark. You know, I've had a meal in the dark before. When I was in high school, I did a meal in the dark. Technology at the dining table. Augmented reality food. Future of perfect meal. Nothing about timing. I wonder. There's something about music, though. The tempo of music. How much money and time we spend at the restaurant. Oh, wait. That's it. How important is the atmosphere for the perfect meal? It's the main chapter, chapter 9.6. Tuning up how much money and time we spend at the restaurant. And we've got the style and volume of music, and we've got the tempo of music, and then we've got the word pardon as a question, which is a chapter. So I guess if you have to ask for help, maybe a thing. Pardon. Of course, any restaurateur reading about the dramatic effects of the ambient music on behavior of their dinners and drinking, of their dinners and drinkers, their diners and drinkers might be well tempted to simply turn up the volume, not to mention the BPM of the music playing in their establishment. Huh. Does it mean that playing faster music makes it better and louder? Wow, that's interesting. But doing this can have negative consequences. Have you, for example, ever found yourself in a restaurant that is simply too loud? Yes, I have. If so, you would join the growing number of customers who, in recent years, have started to complain about about those restaurants and bars where one simply can't hear oneself think, never mind listen to the one sitting across to you. I've certainly recently even had to ask somebody to turn down the music at a restaurant. Okay, style and volume. This seems to be mostly a chapter about music, though. Simple pardon. Both the absence of music and the presence of too much sound, whether it's music or background noise, can detract from a diner's enjoyment of a meal. There's probably no simple solution here for the restaurateur concerned about getting the ambient sound just right. However, rather, it is always going to be a matter of playing it by ear, as it were. He's making a little joke in the book. And using one's judgment to know in order to optimize the auditory atmosphere. While this might require some trial and error, the key thing to remember is that as long as you're thinking about how to match the sound or theme of the tone of the restaurant and whether or not the music is too loud, you'll be in a much better position than those restaurants where they may care passionately about the food but are let down by their lack of attention to the auditory atmosphere. Hey, that's like this stream. There's zero music. The auditory atmosphere is lacking. Without a doubt, anything has to be better than Christmas carols that were playing while one of your authors was dining in the Indian restaurant recently. And before you ask, it wasn't even Christmas. So what? I wonder why that's so. So the book is written by two authors, and it's saying one of your authors, as opposed to just saying the author, or just saying the name of the person who is writing the book, or just saying me, personal pronoun. Didn't find the information I was looking for, and took me 5 minutes. Now I have even less time. Very consistent throughout this whole session. I'm pouring. Very, very nice pours. Nice flowing. Pretty consistent shape. Of course, the ball rolled oolong is not ball rolled anymore. But the flavor has changed quite a bit over the time. A lot of the apple is gone. Apple is gone. Still got a little bit of the nice activity on the tongue. That pinching, kind of a carbonated type of feeling. Sparkling juice. But the apple flavor, well, in the front is gone. It seems like it's there. It's there in the back. Still got the aftertaste of it. But more in the front is kind of woody. Woody, not in a not a pleasant type of woodiness. It's just like pencil shavings kind of woody. I guess it's not that unpleasant, but it is, when I think about it, it's unpleasant. Pencil shavings is the flavor I'm tasting, but it's not so bad. It's still smooth, it's still soft, it's still pretty pleasant. It still has that lovely pour. And we got a lot of color still. Anyway, at this point, I'm in a rush, so I'm gonna have to close out the tea soon. Such a pleasant mouthfeel. I'm feeling I've been feeling floaty for most of this, from very early on in this drinking of today's tea, and persisting until now. I'm just feeling like I'm floating. It's very pleasant. It's very pleasant. And a little bit of a coolingness in the mouth. Well, I've got to clean up. I've got to finish all this very quickly, so I'm going to end the stream, and I'll be back soon.